Hello and welcome to the Empower Couples podcast, where here you get modern, non-boring relationship advice for you and your partner to communicate like pros, fight smarter, and stay on the same team no matter the challenge that you face. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman, and I'm going to do a solo episode here for our Thursday release of this episode. And I do want to go back, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while or following us on Instagram or even TikTok nowadays, I personally have been sharing quite a bit around how the month of August was the hardest month for me in my life, not just our marriage. And so what really brings me to this topic today: all challenges are temporary, but you decide the time. And this is my lesson. You might be feeling like you've heard me share about the challenge, and now it's really time for me to share the real lesson, the real takeaways that I'm getting from this. Now, when I was going through this, and just as a recap, it's around financial investment, a duplex that we invested in, and there were other factors. I mean, I think Sky being in her first year, I think some other financial investments around crypto and another company we had invested in, all of those things just kind of were brought to this place where going even further into this duplex investment, which, man, every day for a month, I was showing up to this property, and really actually for 10 straight days, I was showing up and finding another problem and another problem. And this was already after it had got way mismanaged, and all of our investment was spent in the prior 2 months, which I didn't realize. And the person that was supposed to be managing this came back and said, "Oh, I need more money." And I'm like, "Well, wait a second, let me take a look at this." And I found out how deep this really was going. And I even had to go double my investment, or our investment, for even what my top risk tolerance was. So all that being said, I'm now showing up to this property every day, finding another problem, which is more money, and trying to find the right person to fix it. I'm working 12 to 13 hour days. I put almost 200 hours of my life into this, doing hard labor. I painted the roof. I did so many things even myself, and I honestly would not, I don't think, have even made it out of this if not for the friends that I had. They stepped up and supported me beyond what I could even share here today. And that's probably another podcast of really asking for help and having the right people in your own life, and the huge difference that makes. Now, so that gives you a sense of how that month went for me. And then I'm bringing this fear, this anxiety, this overwhelm, this feeling of stress, this feeling of, I don't know if we're going to make it. I don't know if we're setting up Sky and setting up the family for the future. What if we lose this all? And that was like a real possibility for me. And I'm bringing that energy home to Jocelyn. Okay, so that should give you the picture of what the month was like. Now, for 10 days to really 3 to 4 weeks, my experience was of so much stress, anxiety, worry, fear, that's what brings me here today. I finally realized as the lesson that truly all challenges are temporary. And you probably heard that somewhere before. And it's just really true. A friend of mine has a great poem that she wrote called "Storms Are Temporary." And it's just such a good reminder that if you're in a challenge now, everything in life is temporary. Now, even the things that are joyful, the good circumstances, maybe one person's current health, financial situation, like all of the good things is kind of temporary. And in one sense, you're like, no, I don't want to hear that. But given that is true, that means that the challenges, the hard times, the stress, the bad circumstances, whether in your marriage or outside of your marriage that's impacting you as a couple, that's also temporary. So at one point, as I'm driving to this property, again, every single day, finding problems, like my nervous system is so impacted, so jacked. I'm starting to feel almost depressed. I told Jocelyn a few times, I don't know that I can keep doing this. And that reminder of that this is temporary was really the first place of relief, I would say, that I got from this. And very practically, if I use this as an example, there are only a limited amount of problems I could find. Though it was a lot and it was unexpected and I kept on finding more, there was a turning point in which all the problems were now known. Okay. Then I needed the people. So I got the people. Okay. Then it got fixed. Okay. And then everyone got paid. And even if that was more than I thought, it's just managing a budget at that point. But I really started to see that, okay, there is a path here and this challenge is temporary. So that was the relief for me, right? So wherever for you, that can make a difference. Now, here is the other part of this episode. You get to decide the time. Now, what I mean by that is not necessarily the time in which the challenging situation is going to run its course. It's going to be temporary, but what I really want to talk about, the biggest lesson I got is that I got to decide, and I was put in a position where I decided how long the challenge was going to negatively impact me. And that's the thing I really want to share, that you can really take hold of and responsibility for and empower yourself that, yes, the challenge, its timing and duration are temporary, but you're going to have the opportunity to decide on how long it truly impacts you. Now, in that sense, some people, based on certain challenges, might let the emotional impact happen for much longer than it needs to, months or years, or if we're honest, some challenges for some people have even been done for 20 years, but the emotional impact is actually still as present today. But here's where I really want to dive in with you. No matter what you're feeling, I think you have to allow the feeling first. And if I paint this picture for you again with this month or this last month, how it was for me, imagine feeling just so drained, so overwhelmed, so much stress, so much fear and worry about your finances. That's where I was at. And I almost felt crushed, like, I can't believe I am feeling this again and again and again and day after day after day. And I did get to this place where I felt, it's this term rock bottom, right? And you probably have heard that, but when you actually get there, you feel like, I can't keep doing this. This is the bottom. And when that happens, there becomes a decision point. That's when you can truly shift the timing of the emotional impact that this challenge is going to have on you. And I think this is okay. Being at a certain rock bottom is, in a sense, where you might need to let yourself get. See, I got to the point where I had been beaten down in my experience over and over and over and day after day after day. And then there was one day I was driving there and I said, this is the end. This is not going this way any longer. And so you can let that experience just be and just know you will get to the place where you've been so drained and beat down and you're at the rock bottom. But once you get there, that's when you get to decide that this is it. This is not going to be impacting me like this anymore. I decide this is the day. And that is a huge day to get to. Now remember, the challenge itself, the situation may not have resolved itself, but this is a very key place in even shortening the time that the challenge will continue to go. It's when you decide emotionally. It's when you decide that this is not going to be emotionally impacting me anymore. And though I've been sharing my story here, I want you to look where in your life, where either with your partner, in your interactions, your dynamics together, or maybe something that's happening outside of your marriage that is impacting you. What is that? And where are you right now with it? Have you been letting yourself feel what you need to feel? And have you gotten to that place where you've gotten to either the end of your rope or you've gotten to the rock bottom? If you haven't, I do want to just encourage you that just see if you can let that be okay. And trust that that moment is coming soon where you've gotten down to the bottom and this is it. This is where you say, this isn't going this way anymore. Now, as I complete this podcast here, I will say it really does end up being up to us. You have to wait until you hit this rock bottom of being so beat down, of so devastated, of crushed by this circumstance. No, you don't necessarily have to. I think the power of this conversation and being a human being is that you do have the say that you could do it before you get to the rock bottom. In this scenario, it was so difficult for me that I really couldn't get myself there in a sense. So it just happened to play itself out to where I felt emotionally I was at the rock bottom. And that's when I made a decision that this isn't going to go this way anymore. And I'm just not going to let this keep beating me down. No matter how this goes, no matter what I see when I wake up tomorrow, this doesn't matter. I'm over this. It's not going to do this to me anymore. So you get to say. Sometimes you may have to let it get to the rock bottom. But what is that for you? Where do you feel like you're at in that process? And my main sort of gift, the main lesson is the challenge, the situation is in itself circumstantially temporary. And then inside of that, wherever you find yourself, the emotional impact is also temporary. You will be given an opportunity, either with your choice to decide this is it and it's going different from now on only because I've said, or also you might feel some freedom. And it might not sound like a gift, but there should be some freedom that the emotional impact will run its course where it will bring you down to a certain place, and all of a sudden your body will kick in, your decision will kick in that this is the last day for it. It doesn't matter. This is it. I'm not going to have this do this to me any longer. So that was really one of the biggest lessons I'm taking away from this whole situation. I have a couple of other ones around trust and different things I like to share, and community and support, but I'll save that for another episode. It is an opportunity here when this podcast comes out on Thursday. Tonight, which will be a few hours from when you're listening to this, we are doing a marriage WebClass on the battle for fairness. And maybe that's what the challenge is for you, is this battle for fairness, feeling overwhelmed, feeling stressed around your roles and responsibilities, and it's not fair between you and your partner. And maybe that's the challenge for you. So if that is, just go to onlinecouplesworkshops.com or click in the show notes. It's a free marriage WebClass. It's going to be tonight when you hear this. Join us. It's going to be powerful. If it's after that and you would like some support, as I mentioned, I would not have gotten through this August situation with this investment property if not for some dear, dear friends, some people that really stepped up and supported me, a whole other podcast. But we can also be those people for you. So if it's past the web class and you would like to do a breakthrough session with us, which is where we just get on a Zoom call with you for 1 hour, we're going to get the backstory ahead of time. We're going to understand the challenge before we get on there. But we promise you that we will be a couple, Jocelyn and I, with you and your partner, that can be that resource to turn this challenge around for you right now. This can be that decision point for you where it does not go that way any longer. And so you can book that breakthrough session at meetthefreemans.com/coaching. Also click on the link in the show notes. But that's the lesson. That's the lesson for me. I think it's a powerful one. It's not conceptual whatsoever. I was literally brought to the brink of my emotional impact and how challenging it felt. And this was the honest lesson that I've learned. And I do believe that it's the same for you, whatever the challenge is in your marriage. So I'm Aaron. This is the end of this episode. To me, it's a very powerful one. Would love to hear from you. Reach out to us on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or wherever you can reach us, and let us know a point for you that you've turned it around and said, this is the decision point. This is not going to go this way any longer. I would love to hear from you. So we both love you. I love you specifically. We are here for you, whatever the challenge is in your marriage. I'll talk to you on the next episode.